Go ahead and go to the next section, numbers, right? So, what we're gonna do is add the title, do the section break, all that fun stuff. So, since I've already started with the section break, all I gotta do is just add the title and just go from there. So, um, we're just gonna say title equals, and you could copy it from the front, the top, but I'm just saying numbers. And then I'm gonna do my console dot write line, and I'm gonna just add title. And then let's go ahead and just add a padding right line for this. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and get started. So as that's running, you're going to start seeing some spaces. But what we need to do is start storing something other than a string, right? So we need to be able to store numbers. And in this case, there's more than one data type where you could store a different type of number. So we're going to start with the very first one, which is an integer. So an integer is a whole number. And so we're going to say int space, and I'm just going to say num1 and make that equal to 4. All right, so now we're just saying, hey, the number 4 is stored into num1. So let's go ahead and print this out. Print out the number. So in order to do that, we do console, dot write line, and we're gonna say my number is num1. Right? I added that extra space after is. That way, then the number pops up, and it allows us to say, hey, it's 4, right? All right, so now that we click through here, we're gonna go here and now let's go ahead and work on um, our next one, which is a long number. So one thing to actually know before we jump into that is if I decide to say, hey, this is 4.54 or 4 or 5, sorry, you're gonna get a red line because it's not the right data type. So as you use some of these data types, it's gonna tell you if you didn't use it right. So don't feel afraid to try something as you're learning the basics of some of this stuff, right? So, all right, so now what we're going to do is use the next piece, which is a long number. So I'm going to say set up a long number. Now, a long number allows us to set a stupid long number, pretty much. There is a limit to how much an integer can hold. So what we need to do is um, just kind of remember like, okay, what is our application doing? What are the large numbers we need? Is it even large? Are we going to add some checks and balances to this so then we don't really care about it? So you kind of have to decide which types of variables you want to use. But in this case, what we're going to do is let's just set up the long right now and we'll keep going. So it's just long and let's call this long num. And I'm going to make that equal to let's see, a really big number. I feel like it's like one, two, three, one, two, three, one, two, three. So we have what is this number? 30. This is okay. There, we got that. 3 billion. Sure, that's a big number. Let's go ahead and print that out. All right, now let's print this out. Console.writeLine. And my long number is long num. All right, there you go. Now, hopefully this I did enough zeros, or is it 3 trillion I need to do? One, two, three. What? Well, we'll know in a second. Let's go ahead and just test that out real quick. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna now uh, try the long number in an integer. So we're just gonna say num1 equals and 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to hit enter, and this is what's going to happen right here. I just can't do this, right? And this is going to tell you that it can't convert a uint to an int. These are other additional data numbers that you can use that allow you more digits. So right now we're just going to focus on int though and long and some of the others. But you can look at the list of some of the other pieces. But first get comfortable with a couple of these and then start taking a look at the docs and so forth, right? So this is just saying, hey, you just can't do that. So, all right, well, I can't do it. I'm just going to comment it out and just move forward. So what we want to do is, I don't know about you, but writing this out by doing this plus, making sure space is there, it's a little much, I would say. So what we're going to do is learn how to write some short code with this. But what we're going to do is do it with the num1 and the long num. So now that we've commented this out, num1 still is 4, and this is 3 billion, right? So down here, what we're going to do is I'm going to make a comment and just say, let's, well, that's not a let's, rewrite console write line to in an easier way. We all love easy, right? So let's do console.writeLine. I'm sure you guys are getting tired of typing that out, but this is where we get to do is if you use the $sign and then quotes, you are able to do the following. Now I'm going to use quotes, and now notice how this changed, right? This said value to write in this box right here. So let's write this value. My int number is, I'm going to do a colon, and now anytime you want to just drop a variable within a string, you just have to put curly brackets around it. So we could say num1, and then close the curly bracket, and you could continue typing. So, and my long number is, and let's do curly brackets and say long num, and then close this out, right? So now you got that going. Let's go ahead and run this. Let's take a look at what's going on. And there we go. Take a look at that, right? So this is just a little way that we're going to move forward and typing this out. It is a shorthand for doing it this way. If you feel more comfortable doing it this way at the top until you get more comfortable with doing this, feel free to do that, right? You're still learning, figuring these things out. If you're comfortable, start with that, but remember to start trying these new things, right? Don't shy away from new things as we learn, okay? So let's go ahead and go to the next piece, which is floats. And what floats do is we have to define a float variable, and we have to give it something that we haven't done yet when we add the number, and it allows us to use up to 9 digits. So why is that important? We'll know in a second. So I'm just going to say float right here. Well, actually, I probably should put a note about the 9 digits, right? So using floats, we will uh, need to add an F to represent float at the end of the number, and you get 9 digits. Okay, so I'm going to say float my float. Sounds funny, but float my float equals, and I'm going to do decimal point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And afterwards, I'm going to say the letter F and then close that out. I no longer have an error because I've done everything correctly. If I decide to not put the F, you are going to get an error. So make sure the F is there, right? And now we have that. So let's go ahead and do our console.writeLine. And here is where we'll say $sign quotes. And my float number is my float. There we go. And let's go ahead and hit run. And let's see what happens. There we go. We got our float number. Now, one thing that's very important is let's take a look at what prints out. So right now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. All right. What happened to my 8? Right. So you only get 9 digits. So let's go ahead and count this out. What is being printed? 0 counts. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So what it did was it actually had 10 numbers. So it didn't take this here. This right here, I would have been like, hey, I did put 9 in, right? But we didn't account for the 0 that was in front. So what it does is it will take this here and round up. And because it was greater than 5, this number here, it rounded it up and made this a 9. So this is why there's no 8 here. All right. So what we're going to do is um, let's add some more decimals and kind of just try to play around with this to see what happens with some of this. Right. So all right, let's go ahead, go here, and we're going to hit enter. And now we're just going to say, I guess we should do a console log. Console.writeLine. Let's add more decimals to float num. What happens? So we're just going to say my float equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, or just 1 really, doesn't matter, right? So let's do console.writeLine. And what we're going to say is my new float number is my float. Right. So now we're being very, very deliberate here by using more just to see, okay, what happened, right? So clearly you saw the 1 gone and the 9 and it rounded up. Okay. So let's go ahead and tweak this just a little bit and go, you know what? I'm going to add some like 25 to this, right? So I'm just going to say console.writeLine. Adding, I mean, do we really need to do this? But it's okay. Adding 25 to my float number. You don't have to add these extra console write lines if you don't want to. I'm just kind of doing it out of habit. Add 25 to my float, right? So my float equals 25.123456789. F. There we go. Console.writeLine. Right line. Let's see. Dollar quotes. Added 25 to my float number to get my float. There we go. Let's go ahead and hit run and see what happens. And we get 25.123457. Now, there was a 6 here. The 6 is gone. That's because 7 rounded up made that a 7. So it's 5, 7. So what happens is to the left or to the right, that's all you get with these floats. Now, that's just the way floats are set up. We can go into more detail on that, but I would talk forever for it. So let's go ahead and keep moving on. But just know this one takes 9 digits. Now, as we start writing out some of these longer numbers and so forth, there is one cool thing that we can do to make it just a little bit easier for us to read. And so I'm just going to hit enter twice for a second. We're going to say float 10 million float. Why? Because I'm just going to write 10 million in an easier way for us. I'm going to do 10. We could use the underscore and go 000 underscore 000 F. And what that does is that really literally just gives us the ability to read this and know this is 10 million, right? So up here, somewhere up here, I was like, how many zeros is this? I was like 3 billion, right? If I did underscores, it's just so much easier for us to see right away. We're used to commas. We're used to these things in life. This is one way for us to just make it a little bit easier for us to see as we're typing out our program. So I'm just going to add the note here. Let's see, what were you doing? You can add an underscore to your number to act as a visual space to recognize the number. Sounds redundant. Okay, sorry. No. Cool. So now that we have that, it's going to print out. So let's go ahead and do that. Console.WriteLine. Of course it's going to print out. We're going to make it print out, right? So let's go ahead and do this. 10 million, I guess, 10 million. That's good. 10 million equals, and 10 million float. All right, let's go ahead and run. There we go. Still 10 million, right? It's just visually better for us to be able to do some of this stuff. So, all right. So now let's go ahead and move to doubles. And doubles allows us to have more digits and allows us to have the decimal point as well. So it's similar to floats, but not in a sense where we don't need the F. So we're just going to go in here and type in double. So double my double num equals, and I'm just going to do this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oops, 8, 9. Period. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. Right. So console.WriteLine. My double value is my double num. There we go. Hit save, and let's hit run. And now we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. And it allows us to hold 17 digits. So we could put a quick note in here. Double allows us to hold 17, oops, not 120, 17 digits. Right? So if we wanted to test this out, we could do the, oops, those are not the numbers. Right? Hit save. Let's run this. It will still do 8. Right? Wait, did I do this? Let's run it again because I missed it. Okay, cool. Yeah, there you go. Right? So it just went back to this. So I'm just going to get rid of this because I don't need that. And that's how doubles work. So now let's go ahead to the next one, which is decimals. So decimals are like floats as well, in a sense where floats doubles, where, well, actually it's more like floats because floats uses the letter F, and in decimal we have to use M. We don't really use decimals that much unless you're really doing some type of like banking slash financial apps, and I could see you using decimal, but the amount of precision there, maybe it's, if you're doing manufacturing and so forth, but um, it holds up to 29 digits, which is a ton of numbers. Like the range is massive, right? So we don't want to just call everything a decimal and hold, like, let's say you're making a guessing game where you're guessing a number between 1 and 100. That's a bit overkill on what you're trying to do there, right? So in this case, we're going to say decimal and my decimal value. And all right, let's do this. We're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to use the underscore just to make my life easier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Period. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and let's do 1, 2, and you end with M. And let's go ahead and do console.WriteLine. And we're going to do my decimal value is my decimal value. And I realized I spelled decimal wrong, right? What the heck? What did I do? Decimal. There you go. Perfect. Okay. Let's go ahead and run this, and we're gonna get our decimal value, and we did end with 1, 2. So that's the value you could enter, right? And I just added the decimal to that just to show you like what you can and can't do with some of this, right? So um, yeah, feel free to play around with these. But in this section, we went over what an int is, right? So we started with int, and then we went to long num, and then we went to float and played around float for a second. Then we did a double and a decimal. Now, there's a couple more that you can use, but these are some of the main ones. And I don't even know if you're going to use decimal that often, but just know here's some that you can start with. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just do a console.writeLine blank, and then we're just going to do the section break. Console.writeLine section break is inside, and we're going to go to the next section.